In today's video, I am going to give you a very detailed approach as to how you can teach the spin move in basketball. This is going to be very detailed, and of course, younger players sometimes have issues when it comes to using or doing a spin move, so this is going to be very, very, very detailed so that we can all teach these players how to do it properly. Okay, so really quickly, I just want to say that we are in Canada, which means that we are allowed to take 1 and 2 steps. While if you are playing AAU basketball, you are only allowed to technically take 1 step. However, that also does change, and the reason being is the entire world you're allowed to take 2 steps. Everyone is on FIBA except for some of the American leagues. NBA, you can take 2 steps. NCAA, you can technically take 1 step, but as we've seen in March Madness this year, you can get away with 2 steps. Referees are not calling it. And we can see in AAU, because my teams do play down in the States, most of the leagues and tournaments are using the 2-step rule, and many of the referees have gone away from the 1-step rule because, of course, there's more and more international teams. So I just wanted to announce that really quickly before everyone says that this is a travel. So this is Jazza. He's a fantastic young basketball player, and I am going to be showing you some of the footage that we have on how I was able to teach Jazza how to do that spin move, which is very important. Number 1 is this ball and foot have to touch the ground at the exact same time when you are doing this move. If you are going towards the left side, obviously you are dribbling with your left hand, which means that your right foot needs to be the foot that you do the spin move on. The ball and the foot have to touch the ground at the exact same time. Then, when you gather that ball, you move your outside foot into the direction where you want to go, and this toe has to point where you want to go. That is extremely important. If you want to pull up for a shot, it should be pulling out or pointing out there. If you want to drive to the rim, then it needs to be pointing this way, which means that you need to open up your hips a lot more. This is why hip flexibility is so important in basketball. When you start doing more complex moves, for example, the spin move, you need to be able to open up your hips and have your foot and knee pointing in the direction where you want to go. Next, this would be the first step. So remember, in FIBA rules, we are allowed in FIBA to take 2 steps, which is very important to know. Because now, going into our second step, at this point, he has taken 1 step and 2 steps. As soon as this first foot leaves the ground, that foot cannot get back onto the ground while this ball is still in Jazza's hands. Which means that when he jumps to take that shot, he needs to take that shot, that ball needs to leave his hand before he lands back on that ground. Or he can pass the ball, one or the other. It has to be either a pass or a shot at this point because he's already dribbled. We are literally going through in this video the exact same steps I am explaining right now. If your players are struggling with doing the spin move, show them this video. Show them this video on the actual technical things that they need to be able to do. Because if you don't, and they are still struggling, they are going to continue to struggle. We have to remember that every player learns a different way. Some players are going to learn by actually doing the move. Other players are going to learn better by recording them and showing them what they are doing wrong, or showing them another player who is doing it right. There's audio, video, visual, as well as actual tangible, technical, actually doing the move itself. Those are 3 different ways that players learn. Which means that not everyone learns the exact same way, which is why I'm making this video. It's to help those players who need to visually see what they're doing right or wrong and what other players are doing right and wrong so that they can fix it themselves. Now, if this was the States, and if I was in the States right now, I would not be teaching taking the last dribble on this step. What I would be doing is I would be teaching Jazza to take that dribble and then to have that ball glide in his hand out so that when this foot drops, that would now be the pivot foot, so that now when that foot drops, if he hasn't gathered the ball yet, if he's had it gliding in his hand, having his hand on top of it so that he gathers on this foot, now when he brings this foot around, that would be his one step that he would be allowed. Which is why the travel call is so hard to call, and all these Instagram refs have such a hard time trying to understand what a travel really is. Because if you take that last dribble, if your hand is still on top of that ball and you're turning, and then you pivot and plant the next foot, and then you gather, guess what? You were allowed that step for free. Because you were still allowed to dribble that ball if your hand was on top of it, and then you picked it up. You get a step for free. That is called the gather step. The gather step is not really actually a step. The gather step is basically a step that you take where you could still cross over, still dribble, still do whatever, but you didn't. That's what the gather step really is. People just don't understand it. I hope that this video has helped you. If it has, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time.